how's it going? This morning I am going mountain biking, no surprise there really, it's kind of my favourite thing to do at this time of year. But instead of just going for a ride on the mountain bikes, I'm going to talk you through all the major differences between riding on the road and off-road, the fitness components that you need, but also in which way it benefits you as well, because it's not quite as simple as one is better than the other. They both offer you something very different and they're both really worthwhile. If you have the ability to do both, it's well worth mixing them up a little bit. Anyway, let's go for a ride. Okay, first things first, let's address the major difference between riding on a mountain bike, off-road, and riding on the road. And that is the surface and the terrain that you're going to be encountering. On the road, you can pretty much pedal all the time. Even on a smooth flowing descent or even a technical descent, you're going to be pedaling quite a bit. Off-road, that's not the case necessarily. There's a lot more time freewheeling, and you'll notice this really clearly when you see the footage of me following either Tristan or Steve on your screen in this video. Meaning that for a lot of the time, the energy expenditure isn't just from your legs like it is on the road. You're using your body a lot more than you would be otherwise. A lot of those movements are coming from positioning your body weight over the bike, moving the bike around, and that's providing a bit of component to your cardiovascular exertion. It's not just your legs that are powering the bike forwards, it's the rest of your body as well. So you could argue that it's a much more inclusive workout for the rest of your body and therefore potentially a better workout. And to an extent, that is sort of true. So if you're limited for time and you want to do one discipline only, maybe mountain biking is the one that you should choose. That said, because you are pedaling less, it means that you're not getting as intensive a workout on your legs as you would be if you were on the road. On the road, it's really easy to do strict intervals of any duration whatsoever. But off-road, you're having to combat the terrain that you're riding on. So, you know, is it rocky? Is it rooty? Is it slippery? You're having to dose out that power as efficiently as possible, because if you're just going on the pedals as hard as you can, you're going to be getting lots of wheel spin and things like that, which is going to be wasting energy for a start. It's going to be making it a really sketchy ride. If you get lots of wheel spin, it can mean that you're going to be losing momentum in places where it's crucial to be maintaining that momentum. That's a really important factor when it comes to riding off-road, is actually maintaining momentum to be as efficient as possible. So for pure aerobic fitness, you might well be better off riding on the road more, meaning that you can control the sort of exertion that you're putting into the pedals and onto the bike, and you can dictate to the terrain exactly how hard you ride rather than have it dictated to you. However, on the mountain bike, if you want a good old school fartlek style training session, fartlek meaning speed play, it's kind of like a free training session where you go hard where you want to go hard and you go easy the rest of the time. So it's kind of a nice way of doing unstructured intensity. So you let the intensity happen as it happens rather than you pressing lap button and deciding you're going to go hard there. It adds a whole other component to your riding as well, meaning that you have to also factor in that tyre to eye coordination, as I like to call it, meaning you have to analyse the surface of the terrain you're riding on before throwing your tyres into it. The more you ride, the more experience you'll become with this, knowing exactly how much grip you're going to have at any one time, allowing the bike to move that little bit underneath you if you need to, the tyres to slide out that little bit extra. This then translates really well to being on the road bike, helping you feel confident and in control in a lot more scenarios than you would perhaps otherwise. I think that's really important for any road rider. It's just to spend a tiny amount of time off-road just to get used to the bike moving around underneath them that little bit more. I'm not saying that you should then go and do that on the road. The point is more that you can then, if you are ever so slightly over the limit on the road, self-correct that little bit before you have an accident. It means that the chance of you actually crashing and falling off the road is vastly reduced. So it could well be more beneficial to build your aerobic fitness out on the road, or at least on much more consistent terrain than it is on proper off-road tracks. But one thing that mountain biking does have that you don't really ever get on the road is seriously high torque anaerobic efforts. And I'm talking about those 10 to 30 to 40 second short, sharp climbs that you need absolutely every muscle of your body engaged to try and get up it. Not just because it's mega technical, but also just because it is so steep, you physically really need to push hard on those pedals to propel yourself up there. And that probably is my absolute favorite challenge about mountain biking, is the fact that the terrain, even though you're going up a climb, it's also still technically fun. So it's not just whilst you're descending that you're going fast, that you're having fun on the road. That's what I enjoy. On the mountain bike, the climbs are also a challenge, whereas on the road, you know, maybe it's because my fitness is at a level where any climb is manageable. You know, you just go at a pace that you know you can maintain until the top. On the mountain bike, that's not necessarily the case. You know, they become genuine max efforts to get to the top of these climbs. And I think that is a huge hidden sort of quality of mountain biking, if you like, and something that, unless you're racing on really wet, slippery cobbles, doesn't really exist on the road in the same way. But what about when you want to go out and do a nice, easy ride? What would you then choose? Well, I think for me personally, I'd probably still choose to ride on the road. unless I had access to an e-bike, in which case then maybe you could go out and you could still train your technical ability whilst pedaling gently back up to the top of all of those descents. I think that would be quite a good idea, and that is something that you see more and more riders using these days, e-bikes for recovery training while still working on the technical aspect. Mountain biking, without a doubt, definitely uses more of your body, more of your mind. You have to really focus on what you're doing. And I'm not just saying that as someone who's slightly less experienced in mountain biking. It is just a fact. On the road, you can kind of switch off, and that's the beauty of riding on the road. You know, you can switch off, you can just pedal, you can cruise along. You don't have to be too mindful about what you're doing. Whereas on the mountain bike, it's another way of switching off altogether, because you're so focused on that one thing that you're doing that you're switched off from every other aspect of life. And I think that's equally its appeal. So if you are a road rider, how often should you be riding off-road? I thought about this quite a lot. And in 2016 into 2017, which was one of my best early seasons that I ever did, I did 1 to 2 training rides every week on the mountain bike, and I went really, really well. Mentally, I was fresh because my training was nicely mixed. It meant that I wasn't ever just ploughing away on the road bike. If the weather was really bad, I'd get on the mountain bike because you're going at less speed, meaning wind chill is definitely less of a factor. You've got to look out for cold puddles and things like that. You're going to get wet if it's raining. But at the same time, I just felt that little bit more comfortable riding the mountain bike, meaning that I was going to be mentally fresh, as I mentioned just a second ago, going into the early season when it was more important to be on the road more of the time. As a road rider, I think you should aim to ride your mountain bike 1 to 2 times out of every 10 road rides. That maintains a good amount of skill set, meaning that you're never going to be too rusty when you get back out onto the trails, but equally it's not going to detract from the aerobic fitness that you need to be building to be a good road rider. So which discipline is harder? Well, I think that's quite a difficult one to answer, and one that I'm not going to go into today. Let's do a few tests and actually make a proper video on that. The only thing I would say is if you're going to go and ride flat out for 2 hours, theoretically they're both going to be equally as tough, although one is clearly going to have more strain in your body because you're engaging a lot more muscles than you would be just on the road. Hopefully that's helped highlight a few of the major differences between riding on the road and riding off-road, physiologically speaking at least. I enjoy doing both, and I think it's a really good way to mix up your training if you have access to both bikes. Over the coming weeks, I'm going to be doing quite a detailed look at some of the more technical aspects of both disciplines, creating some more training videos, and I've got a lot of fun ideas that I'm really looking forward to sharing with you. So if that's the sort of thing you're interested in, it would be really cool if you would subscribe. I'm also going to be doing some more road training specific videos, and I'm quite looking forward to bringing those to you as well. That's it from me. I'll see you all again soon.